Yo ni voy a agregar más. Sí, la
Entonces es la Biblia. ¿Cómo no sé qué sé?
No sé. Probablemente no. No, yo quiero ser mantenimiento.
That's a great dosage of honesty. Pero sí. Porque eso
Bien, y estamos vamos a competir. Las universidades no se las dicen que en el LinkedIn Class de Giovanni, que no quiere comprar las hojas. Creo que se acierta. Lo averiguan. Y ya bastante rumores que se puede votar.
Pero sí, rompe. O sea, como que sí, let's start with an exercise. A couple of questions to introduce our last topic of the course. 2 weeks more. You get rid of me.
Haven't we done the midterm?
I haven't marked them, sorry. I haven't. Probably I will give them to you. We will review it on the last class of the semester. Probably. I mean, for sure. If I can do it before that, we will do it before that, but for sure, the last class. Morning. How do you think you did? What's the exam? Wasn't too bad, wasn't it? No. It was okay, no?
Yes.
It could have been worse.
I like to talk before I got the graded exam.
You don't like to have an opinion about it? Okay. You think it's bad luck? Or what?
No, but you can like quedar como un payaso.
Make a fool of yourself?
Yes.
No, no.
Yo creo que saco de 0 a 100.
Oh, yeah. Did you manage to get the code? So that I can go to the question. You know what a coil is? A coil manufacturer requires copper in 6 months' time. What is the risk the manufacturer is facing? You know what coil is? Bobina? They are made of copper wires, and they with an electric current, they create a magnetic field, and that's how motors work with coils. So, but that's not the important part of the question. The important part of the question is he needs copper to produce the coils. What do you think is the the risk or risks he is facing? The risk that the price of the copper goes down, the risk that the price of the copper rises, fluctuations in the exchange rate, because copper is a metal. The price of the copper is set internationally, and it's set in dollars. Changes in interest rates. So most of you think that the most important risk is the price that the copper increases. Second, in second place, fluctuations in the exchange rate. Did anyone that choose the price of copper going down explain why do you think that is a risk?
Well, I just think that it's possible. I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen in 6 months, so I just think.
That the price goes down? And what, yeah, I agree on that. It could go up or down, but why would that be a risk for the manufacturer? It could be.
Well, he's selling it. So
When he sells the copper, when he sells the coils, if the price of the copper is lower than the price of the copper when he bought it to produce the coil, that would represent a loss, right? When he's purchasing the copper, the fact that according to what he planned, according to the forecast he has, and the price he has already probably agreed with clients, the price of the copper increases according to that plan. That represents also a risk because of the possible loss. So he has risk on both sides when he produces and then when he sells. Right? Good. How about fluctuations in the exchange rate? What is the risk there?
They might be financed by debt.
Denominated in foreign currency, for example? Yeah, good reason. Another reason? Those of you who chose that, why did you choose it? Maybe you chose it for a different reason.
It also affects the prices.
So if I am a Mexican oil coil manufacturer, my operating currency is the Mexican peso. I'm going to buy copper. The risk just intrinsic to the price of the copper is that it goes up and down. But apart from that, the price in pesos will change because of the exchange rate. So if this is a manufacturer whose operating currency is not the dollar, he faces at least those two risks. Price risk, which is the price of the copper, and exchange rate risk. And those of you who chose interest rates, how would that risk work? So if the company borrow money at floating interest rates, then an increase in the rates will increase the cost, the producing cost for the company, production cost.
An exchange rate, an exchange risk is a business risk or is a?
No, it's a market risk. It does not depend on your operation. Exactly. Yes.
It could be a cost of opportunity risk because when the 6 months arrive, it will be a lower, or with the analysis, we can, or the company can analyze that it will be better to, well, it will be better to have financed it 6 months ago than buying in that moment because of the rate.
Than buying what?
The copper.
6 months later, you mean?
I mean, when the time arrives.
When the time arrives for buying the copper?
Yes.
Or for selling the coins?
For buying the copper.
Okay, for buying the copper.
If you make the analysis, it could be a better option to have financed that bulk of copper in the past at the rates that was considering all the situations in that moment.
So borrow money in advance, you mean?
Yes.
All right. Probably, yeah, that could also be a reason. Okay, so at least 3 risks. Just to produce the coins I produce in my company. Okay. What can he do? How can he reduce risk? Choose one of the risks. How can he reduce it?
Buying the forward.
Entering into a forward contract. Good.
So that the exchange rates
Is at risk.
play a little.
At least he knows for sure in advance what is the exchange rate he will incur.
Mhm.
He won't be able, with a forward, to eliminate a possible loss, but he at least knows in advance how worse that could be. Mhm. So borrowing at fixed rates, that could reduce interest rate risk in the forward market, future contracts, futures or forwards, good. Borrow money at fixed rate, once more. Agreeing on the price with contract, on the price of the copper, right? I suppose. Because interest rates are the price of the currency, right? So it's also a price. Exchange rate is also a price. So what price are we talking about? Anyone else writing so that we can wait for you? No? So you have the idea, right? Only because you know today we're going to start talking about derivatives. Okay? According to the time it takes for an asset to be paid for, so how long how much time do I have to pay for this good I am buying? Okay, I'm starting there. According to that time, which we call the settlement time, settlement days. So how much time I have before I have to pay for the asset and become the owner of the asset. According to the settlement date, financial markets are divided into cash markets and derivative markets. Do you know Casa de Cambio San Jorge? Have you heard about them? Yes. Yes. What do they do? What's their business?
Exchange.
They buy and sell currencies, basically dollars, right? Okay. And when you go and buy dollars, with your Mexican pesos, how long does it take before you have to pay for the dollars? How much time do you have? The moment you deliver the pesos, the moment a few minutes later, they will deliver the dollars. That is the cash market. Okay, so transactions take place on an immediate basis. I pay, I receive. I don't pay, I don't receive. Okay. If I'm a supplier, I deliver, I get paid immediately at the same time. Okay, cash market. But we have other types of markets which are called derivative markets, in which derivative instruments are traded. Derivative instruments like futures, options, and swaps, okay, that we will review in this class. It will be an introduction to the derivatives market because, as you may be aware of, that's a whole field of within the finance discipline. So we have 2.5 weeks to talk about derivatives. It won't be enough. It won't be enough to go into detail, but you will at least know how they work. That's the objective, that we know how they work and how a company, how a manufacturer can use these instruments to protect against some risks, because they cannot protect against all types of risks. They can protect against specific types of risks, okay? So you pay for the right to receive a good, an asset, oil, copper, US dollars, maize, coffee, oranges, cattle, all right? Other money like change or exchange at a specific date in the future. So do you receive it? You do not receive it immediately. Sometimes you have to pay like a down payment today to have this right to receive the asset in the future. Okay, so you pay depending on the derivative, and that's something that we will learn. Depending on the type of derivative, you pay sometimes like a fee to have the right to receive the asset later, but you have to pay for the asset later as well. Sometimes you pay a down payment, so it's like a deposit that will be taken into account on the final price of the asset. So they work differently, okay? So you pay something at the beginning upfront, which is usually a very small amount, a very small proportion of the amount of the transaction, okay? And you will receive the assets in the future, not immediately. Okay, is that clear? Cash market, derivative markets. Okay. Now, what is a derivative instrument? A derivative is a financial security. Remember chapter 14? What is a security? Security has some particular special features that need to be fulfilled. Otherwise, the instrument is not a security. I'm going to give you some. Is a bank loan a security? Why not? They are not traded in the market. As the main feature of a security. Securities are instruments, are claims, remember that word, which are traded in the financial markets. Unless a bank loan is set as a collateral for collateralized debt obligation, for example, it won't be a security. Okay, is a stock a security?
Yes.
Why?
It's traded.
Okay, in a stock market, for example, yes. So if a derivative instrument is a security, can I go and get it in the bank, from the bank? Can I go and get it from Casa de Campo San Jorge? Can I go and get it in Walmart, HB? No. I have to buy a security derivative in a stock market. In fact, in a derivatives stock exchange. In a derivatives exchange. There are some exchanges in which you find together equity, derivatives, and debts. And there are in other countries where they have them separate. So there is a stock exchange just for debt and equity, and they have a derivatives exchange just for the. That's the case of Mexico. We have two exchanges, well, we have three, but we have one exchange for equity and debt. And for derivatives, we have a separate institution, which is Mercado Mexicano de Derivados. In short, MixDer. That is the derivatives exchange we have in Mexico. Okay? So it's a security. A derivative is a security. It is traded in the market, although there are exceptions, but we will talk about them later. The value of this security, the value of these derivatives is reliant upon or derived from something else, an underlying asset. Okay, let's put an example. What is pizza made of?
Cheese.
Cheese.
Bread.
Bread. Okay, flour. Flour. Tomato. Tomato. And the sauce. What happens? What would happen to the price of pizzas if flour price rises? If tomato price rises? If cheese price rises?
Yes.
It would rise. So we could say that the price of the pizza derives from, is reliant upon the price of its ingredients. Right? Well, the analogy is not exactly like that, but I thought that was a clear example. A derivative, a futures contract, an options contract, a swap contract is a pizza. The price of those derivatives depend on the price of what you are buying in the future, in the option or in the swap. If I am buying pizzas in the future, which okay, and the price of the pizza increases, then the price of the future will increase. But let's say I'm buying copper through a futures contract. What happens if the price of the copper internationally rises? The price of the future will go up as well. If the price of the copper goes down, I would expect the price of the future go down even. In that sense, you have two different assets. One is the derivative, and the other is the underlying asset. The underlying asset for the pizza is the flour, the tomato, the cheese, the topping. Okay, that's the underlying asset. So what am I buying? What am I selling through the futures, through the options or the swap? That is my underlying asset. So if I want to buy copper in 6 months' time through a futures contract, then the underlying asset is the copper itself. The derivatives is the futures contract, and the underlying is the copper, the metal, intrinsic. Okay, is that clear? Right? So let's repeat. A derivative of financial security with a value, a price that is reliant upon or derived from an underlying asset or group of assets. Like in the pizza, we have 4 or more ingredients. That group, the price of that group of assets is the underlying asset for the derivative. So the derivative itself is a contract by itself, on its own, okay? And because it is a contract, it's between 2 or more parties. There must be 2 people, one buying, the other selling. Maybe in the middle, there is another one. So we have the buyer, the seller, and someone in between, an intermediary. We know that, we know the name, a financial intermediary, which is usually a financial institution. Okay, the investment branch of a bank, usually. Okay, the price of the derivative is determined by the fluctuation in the underlying asset, just like in the pizza. If the copper price moves, goes up, goes down, the same should result in the price of the future. Okay, it won't be proportional, but it should be in the same direction. All right. The most common underlying assets include individual stocks. For example, in Mexico, we have futures and options contract for América Móvil, Puma, Visa, Carso, okay, individual. Bonds. We have internationally, we have government bonds and corporate bonds. For our derivative exchange, is mainly government bonds. Bonos, fixed rate bonds from the government, which are called bonos, and UDI bonds, and some bonds, and SETI, which is not a bond. It's and that's security. Commodities. Are commodities. What is that? How do we translate the word? Are commodities something that is comfortable? What is commodities?
Basic products.
Basic products like egg, milk, oil, corn, gold. So what is the characteristic of a commodity?
Yes. Materia prima.
That's the translation. That's exactly the translation. Yeah. So they are goods used
Weights, other.
in as an input for manufacturing processes. And we have metals, and we have grains, wheat, maize, oatmeal, right? So we have grains. We have precious metals like gold, silver, but we have other types of metals, palladium, aluminum, which are not precious metals. Okay, we have two types. Mhm. What else do we have in commodities?
Some foods.
Yeah.
What?
I don't think we have,
Well, what?
I don't, but water is not a commodity. It's not tradable. Right, it's not. Yeah, it's not. Interesting.
At the moment.
At the moment, but maybe you have an idea for business. So that you have a wife, paying for all these things. Working for you. Sorry, Andrew. Okay. All right. Currencies. It has to be pairwise. Dollar versus yen, dollar versus Mexican peso, other than way around, dollar versus euro, euro versus dollar, Canadian dollar versus American dollar, Australian dollar versus American dollar, okay? Currencies, interest rates. How can we buy and sell interest rates? I just don't get it. It is clear how we buy gold, silver, oil, even electricity. How do we buy and sell interest rates?
It will be like in a loan.
In a loan,
It's not like it's like a bet.
like a bet?
The interest rate might rise or lower.
Yeah. That's exactly what we are hoping for, yes. Andrea, you want to say something?
I bought the right for
Say it again, sorry.
boy the right for the right
Say it again, sorry.
boy es como comprar, yo compré
Buy
the right
the rights to
fix
the rate. But how do you do that? Do you remember the market of the Eurobonds? Do you remember what a Eurobond is? What is it?
It's a bond, selling, fuera del country.
Outside the country?
Outside the country. It's a different currency
Of the domestic.
of the domestic.
Mhm. And do you remember that related to that to that Eurobond market, there is the euro dollar market? Or in other words, the Eurobond market was a result from the euro dollars. Remember that? So we first had the euro dollar and then the Eurobond market. So what was the euro dollar? What is, because it does exist. What is the euro dollar?
You mentioned that some people in the United States they receive their salary in other currency. It wasn't.
It was in the States and there were Russian people,
I don't know. I don't remember the currency, but
dollar.
they receive a salary in different currency, and they in England, I think, exchange that US dollars to pounds.
There were many dollars in the United States belonging to foreigners, particularly Russian people. There came the time for the Second World War, and the United States needed money, and they thought, oh, let's put a tax to the deposits of foreigners in our country. Okay, and those people were going to lose money because of the taxes. So England realized there was an opportunity. What if I allowed them to bring the American dollars into my economy and I won't charge taxes? So there was a flow of dollars from the US to England, okay, which is a European country, right? So these euro dollars refer to dollars which are deposited outside the United States. Okay, and because, so first we had dollars in England. So now what do we do with American dollars here? Okay, we cannot use them. What if we lend those dollars to other companies, to other people who need the dollars? I will charge for that. Great, right? And then we created the euro-dollar market, right? Loans outside the United States denominated in US dollars. English banks charging for that service. So you have a good idea, you charge for your idea, won't you? Right?
Right.
Okay.
Slide, we're right.
And then, yeah, so what do we do now? So now we have dollars, and then we have the euro dollars, and now we have the euro dollar market. So let's create a reference for all the loans, the credits that are written out outside the US. So let's leave the United States with their prime rate, which is the interest rate charged within the United States, and create an internationally usable rate, LIBOR, right? And then let's misuse the LIBOR so that we can we can come to an end to that market, which happened already. Okay, but that's another story. So that is the euro dollar. So today, euro dollar deposits, euro dollars do exist. So one of the references for the derivatives on interest rates is the euro dollar deposit, usually $100,000. So the intermediary could place auctions, subastas, okay, to ask people how much money they are willing to pay to have a deposit outside the United States, and receive a return. Okay, so that rate is the reference for one of the main references, not the only one, for the derivatives on interest rates. So this is the interest rate on euro dollar deposits is the interest rate you will lock in or you will pay depending on what side you are in the derivative. And that's how you will fix for a period of time an interest rate, either for receiving it or paying. Okay, so that's basically how interest rate derivatives work. Okay. Market indices. So we have, for example, the futures and the option for the IPC. There are futures and options for basically all the stock exchange indices around the world. For the FTSE in the United Kingdom, for the Nikkei in Japan, of course, for the Standard & Poor's, for NASDAQ in the United States. And there are some kind of exotic, underlying assets. One is weather. So the amount of rain, you set a reference. What you need for a derivative to work is a reference, which is called, how do we call with an elegant word, references in the financial jargon?
Benchmark.
Exactly, right? Benchmarks. So you need a benchmark. And you set, for example, 77 Fahrenheit degrees as the benchmark. So if in a city, in a region, the temperature, the average temperature during a period of time is above that benchmark, then probably you receive a compensation. If it is below, you have to pay the compensation, okay? What for? Well, imagine farmers. What if you have a very cold winter and you cannot grow what you expected to have in your crop, in your harvest? You probably won't sell as much as you expected because of the weather. Okay, so you buy a derivative to get a compensation in case that risk arises and affects you.
It's like a seguro.
Yes, it is like an insurance.
Yes.
Mhm. We don't have insurances for that.
Okay.
Right. These you can buy in an exchange. You can buy if you need it. You have different types of insurance. One that is obligatory and other that is not. And insurance is always compulsory. No matter what happens, you have to pay for it, right? But derivatives, there are different types, okay? And in the derivatives market, you will find different references. I said 77, but you are going to find 78. You're going to find, sorry, wait, 76. Okay. You're going to find derivatives for rain, for snow, even for the wind speed. Okay. There are derivatives for farm roll payrolls. So for salaries, there is a reference of the salary. And in case the government decides that the increase in the salaries is greater than you expected and that you forecast and you set in your Excel file and all your financial ratios, then you are going to gain a compensation. Okay, for you have to pay for that. It's not for free. Okay, derivatives are not free. Okay, but they are instruments that may help the company protect against certain types of risks. Sometimes even strange risks. Okay.
So whoever trades that derivative I imagine that they have like analysis to settle the price, right? To have the expected wind velocity.
Exactly. So that you can choose, because if you want to buy this derivative, they are going to give you a menu, very vast, very varied. So you have to choose the correct, the convenient, not necessarily the correct, the convenient benchmark for you.
Okay.
Right?
Firms may use that for reducing risk, right? But
No,
no.
no, you can use it. You can use derivatives for hedging, which is protection, for speculation or for arbitrage.
Yes, that's what I'm going to say, that if a normal person can bought it to add it just to their portfolio.
Yes, you can. Yes, you do. Indeed. Okay. Basically, what a derivative is.
You said that if the circumstance is different than the benchmark, then it depends whether you pay or you get paid.
Exactly. And that depends on the position you get in the derivative, because you decide if you want to get paid or if you want to pay, depending on what you need. Because it depends if you're going to sell, if you're a farmer and you're going to sell, you need a derivative which is different from your clients, right? So depending on the position you take in the derivative, then the compensation may be that you get paid or that you pay. Okay. Where are these securities traded? Derivatives are traded in exchange traded markets and in over-the-counter markets. Exchange traded markets are translated as mercados bursátiles. Over-the-counter markets are translated as extra bursátil, mercados extra bursátil. All right? So what does that mean? That an exchange traded market needs an exchange, a derivatives exchange. The transactions occur through an exchange. In the over-the-counter market, transactions occur with traders. There is no exchange in the middle. Okay? 90% of the derivatives markets goes through the over-the-counter market. It doesn't mean that they are illegal. No, that's not the idea. Okay? No, they are not. It's just that they do not use an exchange. Okay?
Okay, can you repeat that? Or when you say that they don't choose over the counter, why?
The over-the-counter markets do not use an exchange, a derivatives exchange.
Oh,
For example, over-the-counter markets in Mexico don't go through MexDer.
okay.
Find my trader. Okay? Most derivatives which are traded through exchanges are traded over the counter, but not all of them. You do not find exactly the same securities in both markets. So in an exchange, you find futures contracts, options contracts, traded derivatives, and that's it. Okay. Swaps, for example, are traded over the counter. Futures, when traded over the counter, change their name, and they are called forwards. So it's like futures and forwards are brothers and sisters. It's just that futures are only traded through exchanges, and forwards are only traded over the counter. The mechanics is basically the same. There are quite a few differences that we will review. Okay, the essence is the same. Now, what other difference is there between exchange traded markets and over-the-counter markets? By the way, over-the-counter markets receive an acronym, an abbreviature, OTC market. Which are the initials, right? Over-the-counter, OTC markets. In exchange traded markets, besides the exchange, there is another institution, another company, which is called the clearing house, which is in charge every day, every business day of the derivatives market to net all the positions of all the parties that buy and sell instruments. Do you know how the banking system works? What happens when the branches closes to the public? What happens later?
You need zero cash.
The what, sir?
They cannot have cash.
Yep. But apart from that, what happens when a bank branch closes for the public? Because people working in the bank do not finish their jobs. Their working hours is not from 8 to 4. They usually leave 7 or 8. What do?
Transaction with other.
Exactly. So they net all the transactions with all the other banks to determine at the end of the day how much money Banorte needs to transfer Bancomer and the other way around. How much money Banorte needs to transfer HSBC and the other way around. Okay? And that is through a clearing house. The same word is used for the banking system and for the derivatives market. It's called Cámara de Compensación. That's the correct translation. Okay? Compensación, it's another way we translate settlement. Okay? Or netting. Right? So that's what the clearinghouse does. At the end of every trading day, they have the record of all the purchases and the sales, and they net the parties because the derivatives markets work through netting. So what is netting? So let's say I have counterparty A and counterparty B. And counterparty A needs to pay, for example, 500 pesos or 500 million pesos to B. But at the same time, in other transactions undertaken on the same day, for example, company B needs to pay company A 300 million pesos. What would happen? If company A paid B, and then is waiting to see their 300 million back, and they don't see it, and never come back. It's a high risk, but it's not the same as paying the net. What is the net cash flow? Remember this word that we have used for months and months, right? What is the net cash flow? 200. going from A to B, right? A owes $200 million B. That's a debt. If I pay only 200 million pesos to B, I am risking only the amount of money I owe. I did not lose. I just paid what I was supposed to pay. That's it. So that's why the derivatives market, which is a highly risky market, works through netting. This is netting. This is called the netting. Okay. And that was the clearinghouse does. So at the end of the day, they make a report and say, value needs to transfer Manoche 21, 1,500 million pesos today. And Cemex needs to pay me $150 million. Okay, so they report the debtor positions, the amount of money everyone bears, owes. Okay, that does not exist in the OTC market. I don't have anyone telling me how much money I owe party A, party B, party C. I don't have anyone sending me an email saying, remember that today or tomorrow before 8 a.m. you need to transfer this amount of money. Otherwise, all your positions will be closed out. Okay? No, I don't have anyone telling me that.
What does that mean?
Close out, cancel. But they don't use the word cancel because you cannot cancel. So they use the word close out, which in the derivatives market is a synonym for cancellation. But you cannot cancel an obligation. Can you? Just default, right? So if a position is closed out, means it is reported that it has been ended, it has been stopped, and they will report if you owe money or not. If a position is closed out and you owe money and you don't pay, then you may be sued because these are contracts. These are agreements you sign. Okay. Then they go after your collaterals. Because in order to be part of these exchange traded markets, you have to deposit something that is called margin. So it's like a deposit you put in the derivatives exchange so that you are eligible to do transactions with them. So it's their guarantee. Okay, if you default, at least they recover that amount of money, at least. And of course, you will be sued later, and you will be left out the market. That's the immediate consequence. All your contracts, if you default in one contract, all your contracts automatically go to default. And the clearinghouse will record the amount of money you owe. They will take your deposit, your margin, and if there is any money still in debt, they will go after you as a company, right? All right, so far so good? So that does not exist in the over-the-counter markets. In the exchange traded markets, the exchange will tell you how large the contract may be. There is only one size per underlying asset. You want to buy dollars? $10,000. I need 21,000. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. Which one do you like? Which one could you like? Okay, it's a standardized. The size of the contract depends on the underlying asset, and internationally, it is the same size. Some exchanges like us, they introduce the mini contracts. So there is like the usual size of the contract, and then because they think that for smaller investors that contract is too large, then they created some smaller version of the same contract, which need a lower amount of money. Okay. So for example, the standard contract for the IPC is 10 times the IPC. The mini is 2 times. Okay. The contrary, in the over-the-counter market, the contracts are customized. They are tailor-made. How many dollars do you need? Yeah, I can build a contract for $21,000. No problem.
Because they have like a minimum.
Every bank, every institution will state that, yes. It's like for investments. If you go to Cuspid, they will tell you 1,000 pesos. If you go to GBM, probably 10,000 pesos. So it depends. Yeah, that's something as a policy they will determine, yes. All right, so far so good. So in the exchange traded market, you deal with the clearinghouse. In the OTC market, you deal with another dealer, another company, another person, another individual. Okay? All right?
Yes.
Yes.
In OTC, I have to find a dealer.
Yeah, you have to find a dealer on your own. But don't worry, you just type it, the derivatives dealer in Google, you get tens and dozens of people there.
For my $121 million.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's difficult to find a dealer.
No, not at all. No, because there is a 90% chance that your dealer is OTC. So 9 out of 10 dealers are OTC dealers. So no problem.
They're always riskier than.
Yes, indeed. Because in the exchange traded, you are always dealing with this company. This company is established under the regulation of the authorities of the country. Okay, so they have to have facilities. Maybe the transactions, maybe the dealing, the trading is online, but they have to have offices. Dealers don't. So you don't know where they are. They might be in Mumbai. It might be, I don't know where. Okay.
The clearinghouse is a financial intermediary.
Yes.
And the dealer.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Could be, but not necessarily. For example, forwards may be found in banks. Banorte, Banamex, BBVA. They can sell you forwards. They can even sell you options. Options are also found over the counter. Okay. So that make them OTC dealers, and they are financial institutions perfectly founded under the laws of the regulators of the country. But then you have names that you find, and if you take the time to try and understand who they are, you are probably going to find that they are far away, and they are not traceable. You cannot know where they are. So if they default, because one possibility is that you default, but this is a two-way transaction. There is also the possibility that the dealer defaults, because what if in the futures that we are, or the forward that we are thinking, it is me who receives the compensation. Who am I going to receive it from? In the OTC market, from the dealer. What if they do not answer anymore the chats? What if they do not answer the emails? The telephone doesn't work. Okay? How are you going to get your money? So the risk is high. A lot higher than through the exchange. But sometimes it's cheaper in terms of money, not cheaper in terms of the transaction, because riskier should not be cheaper, right? But probably they don't ask for a down payment. Probably they don't ask for margins, or probably they ask for margins which are very low in comparison to what they ask in the clearinghouse. Because these people are going to ask you for all your IDs. They are going to ask you for the names of your family. They are going to, they need to know who you are, where they can find you. So there is a lot of paperwork, which usually is not the case, is waived for the OTC market. So it is easier It's cheaper. They offer the stars and the moon and everything, right? High, extraordinary returns, right? Okay, so that's over the counter and exchange traded. One of the main difference apart from all that we have been saying is that, and that is exactly the question I was asked, counterparty risk. In the OTC market, you deal with another person or with another company. Sometimes, as I mentioned, that company may be a bank, which reduces the risk a lot. But counterparty risk, the risk that your counterparty defaults, that's counterparty risk, is higher on the OTC market. That's clear, right? Okay. Counterparty risk is a type of credit risk. Credit risk in general is the risk that the terms and conditions of a contract are not fulfilled. That's credit risk, okay? Credit risk is something that is measured by the credit rating agencies. Remember, triple B, double B, triple A, double A, A plus, A minus, well. Those rates, those ratings measure credit risk in general, okay? The overall concept. One aspect of credit risk is counterparty risk. The risk that your counterparty defaults. They don't pay. They don't pay on time, they don't pay completely, or they don't pay at all. There are different levels of default. Good? Yes.
And from those, like 9 out of 10 dealers, like how many of them can scam you, like in the same probability?
How many of them, sorry?
How many of them can be like scammers?
Half, I would say.
Like 6?
Half of the 9.
Half.
That's why if you are interested in dealing with the OTC market, go and check for the references, because there are traders which are serious. For example, if you go to the webpage of MexDare, they may even have, they won't recommend anyone, but they will have information or reference to some of the OTC dealers because they deal with them as well. So check on them. Check on them.
But then if they're scam you, you can sue, but
Yeah, in Bombay, yes. You see the problem?
yes.
The problem is you have to spend a lot of money, time, knowledge that usually we don't have to do that. What would you do? Nothing. It's just too costly because they won't be near. They won't be near you. They won't be. Okay. The Mexican Stock Exchange also has information about OTC dealers. You can find at least 10 or 12 names of companies or individuals that are serious. Okay. So, what is credit risk? You think of the character of the person, the conditions of the company, the collateral that the company has placed, if there is any, the capital at risk. It refers how much money are we putting at risk in this transaction, okay? And the capacity of the counterparty to pay. Those 5 features are assessed by, for example, credit rating agencies in order to provide an opinion about the credit worthiness. It's called credit worthiness. Of the company. So credit ratings, in fact, measure this. We don't use anymore the word credit, but they are in fact credit ratings. Okay? Nowadays, we only use the word ratings, but we should know that ratings from Moody's, from Standard & Poor's, from Fitch, they are credit ratings. Okay? That's the reason we cannot have ratings for equity, because equity is not a credit. No wonder, right? I've been asked, why don't we have ratings for equity? Because equity is not credit. Cannot be measured. It's a promise. It's not an obligation. There are no terms and conditions. How can we assess that? Okay. All right. Now, let's put this example. Imagine a European investor who purchases shares of a US company through a US exchange using the US dollar. Okay? This investor is exposed to exchange rate risk while holding the stock. Why? Because if the value of the euro rises relative to the dollar, then the investor net profit in dollar is less valuable. Explain to me why.
You repeat that?
Why is it that the risk is that the value of the euro rises? Why is that the risk? Why not the other way around?
If the investment is in dollars,
The dollar is more expensive.
the dollar is cheaper.
The dollar is cheaper, but if the euro rises, yep, it's cheaper in the other exchange rate. So currently, more or less, $1, $1 equals 95 pennies of the euro. What would happen to that exchange rate if the euro rose? Give me an example. If the euro rose, what would a possible exchange rate be?
95.
1 to 1.
1 to 1?
It would be 0.85.
Anything below 0.95, isn't it?
Yes.
Any exchange rate where $1 is equal to less than 95 pennies of the euro could be the result of the euro appreciating, right? So if the euro rises and this investor that lives in Europe has invested in the US, in US dollar, how many euros would he receive? More or less euros as compared to the original exchange rate? Less euros? Fewer euros? Does everyone agree? Yes? Is that a risk for the investor? Or not?
Yes.
Yes. Compared to the original exchange rate, as compared to the initial stage, for every dollar I owe as an investor, right, I would receive fewer euros. That's not good, right? So exchange rate risk for the investor. The risk that changes in the exchange rate creates a probable loss. Probable because we don't know yet, right? But that is the risk that we don't know. Okay. Okay. To hedge this risk, the investor could purchase a currency derivative to lock in a specific exchange rate. Two words here which are very important for the derivatives market. Hedge. We don't use the word protection in derivatives. We use because I don't know if we were protected or not. We are hedged. Okay. So hedge is a synonym for protect, but the correct term in the derivatives jargon is hedge. Okay. And the other is lock in. Because I cannot assure you what the price of the underlying asset will be. I can help you, derivatives market can help you lock in the price, which is different. Lock in means it will be set at a level, and that level will stay constant for you. But in the market, the price will still fluctuate. No one can assure a price. We can lock in the level of prices. That's different. Okay? Okay? We cannot control, we should not manipulate prices, right? In the financial markets, the assumption is prices flow freely, isn't it? So in that sense, derivatives can lock in, okay? Which is a synonym for us, for our understanding that the price is fixed. Okay, it's fixed for me, because if I buy a forward to buy dollars in 3 months' time, my locking price will be different from Glenda if he does it tomorrow, or from Ana Lucia if he does it the day after tomorrow. We all have different prices, which means the price is not fixed then. No, it's not. It is a locking. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. Now, someone that is not interested in protection, hedging, the noun for hedge is the verb, the noun is hedging, cobertura. So whenever you hear cobertura, that's a hedge, okay? So another use for derivatives is a speculation. Someone who is not interested in copper because he doesn't have a manufacturing company for coil, but he's interested in taking the profit of the differences in prices at different times of the copper. See the difference between the hedger? Hedger is the person, hedger. Coberturista, hedger. And the speculator. And we have hedging, cobertura, or hedge. And speculation. So the hedger is interested in locking the price of an asset he or she needs for the operation of his business. The speculator is not interested in the asset itself. I don't want dollar. I don't want forex. I don't want dollar. I don't want gold. I just want the difference in price of the asset between two different dates. I want that difference. Okay, especially if it is a profit, right? But he cannot choose, and that is the risk. If we could choose to speculate only for profit, then we would be arbitrageurs. Arbitrage. Speculation, it is probably the highest risky operation that exists. There is no protection to the downside at all. You can lose your share to everything, okay? So the speculator, or talking about still the euro, may be interested in the difference in value price of the euro. The speculator needs to have an expectation, because you need to decide whether you want to take the side of the derivative that buys, or if you want to take the side of the derivative that sells. You have to choose. You can have both. So there is no point in having both. Okay. So the speculator needs a direction. He's interested in the profit because he expects certain movement. So maybe this time he expects the euro to appreciate as compared to the dollar and profit from the difference in value, okay? In this case, usually the investment you make is zero. So imagine you made $1,000 of profit and you invested 0 pesos, $0. What is your return?
Infinity.
The motivation for speculators is that they will invest a very, very small amount of, it is a small in proportional terms, but we're talking here about $1 million, $1,000 million. Okay, so in absolute terms, is not a small amount of money, but in relative terms, it is a very small proportion of the amount of money you can get. But what if I did not make a profit? What if I lost? I lost everything. That is the risk of the speculation. The hedger will know in advance what is the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the price I pay for the copper is $115 per ounce. Maybe in the market at that time, the price is 100. Well, I would pay 115. But I made all my numbers. I made all my forecasts. I set the price for my coin based on $115. And that's what we'll have. The worst case scenario is that that's the most I will pay for copper. Maybe I pay 105. Oh, great. I make more money. Maybe I pay 98. Well, even better. Okay. But I will not pay 120 because I lock in the price of the underlying asset. That's the hedger. But the speculator does not. He can win a lot or he can lose a lot. There is no gray area. It's either black or white in a speculation. You win a lot, you lose a lot.
Have you ever invested on speculation?
I don't.
No.
Because I need to do that, I would need time. And I don't have time. So I just go long. I choose my shares. I choose the companies. I keep an eye on them. I change whenever I have to change. I sell whenever I have to sell. But I don't have time to be trading. I don't have time. I have to be honest with myself. If I want to lose money, why do I go on derivatives? If I don't have time to say, I just distribute it, among poor people. If I want to lose money, that would be a best usage of my money. Yeah. Why giving it to make there? Why? There's no point, right? No, I haven't. No, because of that. I know what I need to do. Maybe someone else doesn't have the time and does it.
Have you seen a case where someone loses?
Yes. And then that's the saddest part, because the problem does not stop with the money. It goes to the family. Because you start getting phone calls, you start getting invitations, right, from the banks and from that you have to pay. So you start losing the family assets. You start paying the school for children. You start changing children from private schools to public schools. So you see, I have seen that, and it's very sad. It's not sad that you go from private to public. Don't get me wrong. Not sad. I don't, because it's being recorded. I have to clarify it. No? So what is sad is that you could have put a limit, and people sometimes don't know how to put limits, and they don't know what they are doing. So I do know what I'm doing. I don't set limits. That's recipe for disaster, for sure. Maybe you are like, I have also seen cases of people who don't know what they are doing, and they invested in Bitcoins or things like that, and they got good money, right? By chance, just by chance. Okay, but those are exceptions. I don't know if what I'm going to say is something that someone in the Human Capital Symposium said, but I heard it, and it is true. The proportion of people who do good in life without going to school, so without being literate, it's exceptional. So that's by chance. Most people make good decisions, have peaceful life because they went to school, they learned, they invested in their human capital, and that's how they could make a better life. So it is an exception, like in investments, that you make a lot of money not knowing what you do, not having time to do it. It's just exception. It's not the rule. Okay, so don't get confused with those stories on the internet. I invested $10 and now I have $4 million in my wealth. It could be the case. I doubt it. But it would be, if it were true, it could be exceptional. It would be an exception. It's not typical. It's not the rule. Okay. All right. So far, so good. On Friday, I will see you in the computer room because we are going to do an exercise about margin for futures contract. Margin. Okay. Thank you very much. See you on Friday. Bueno,